everyone. My name is Robert, and today I'll be refuting Mulan Thomas's claim that terminally ill patients can effectively end their suffering through physician-assisted suicide. And I don't think that's really a claim of fact at all, to be honest. To me, that's setting up more for an informational speech. I think maybe a better example of this claim would be most terminally ill patients would rather be killed through physician-assisted suicide rather than suffering through their condition. So I'm going to get to a few of her secondary claims, and the first one I'll refute is terminally ill patients shouldn't have to suffer through their various conditions, or their various variations of pain, And number two is terminally ill patients begin to lose the person they were before their sickness. And the last one is physician-assisted suicide would relieve the pain that the patient is going through. So my first response is, I really think Mulan is correct that terminally ill patients should not have to go through these different variations of pain. But this is not a claim of policy speech, this is a claim of fact. And so I believe that is a weak claim. And Mulan cited that the Mayo Clinic staff, and they stated some of the horrendous symptoms that someone with a brain tumor might go through. And she detailed it, and a lot of facts were thrown out there, but I believe that she could have included a few other terminal illnesses to paint a bigger picture of the severity of this issue, and not just focus on the granddaddy of all terminal illnesses, which is a brain tumor. So, like I said, this was very informational, but it really left no room for argument. And my second response to her second claim is terminally ill patients begin to lose the person they were before their sickness. And Mulan cited the AARP and stated that 85% of these types of these patients suffer from cognitive changes during the later stages of their sickness. And she said that's due to both the sickness and the medications that people take. And she goes on to say that some of these medications, or these medications in general, have side effects that could kill you just as bad as the disease itself. And that in itself is a hasty generalization, saying that all of these medications can have these severe side effects. And in that same article from the AARP that stated that 85% of these terminal illness patients suffer cognitive side effects, literally 3 or 4 sentences down, there's a recommendation to take a medication called haloperidol. And some of these side effects, according to rxlist.com, in an article written by John Kuna, some of these side effects are dizziness, fainting, rapid heartbeat, stabbing chest pains, and mood changes. And from the article cited and the information derived from that article, it seems a little contradicting to me. And her final claim is physician-assisted suicide would relieve the pain that the patient is going through. And she compares a dog being euthanized to a human being killed by physician-assisted suicide. And I really believe Mulan is smart for making that appeal to pity, because she knows our professor is a dog lover, she knows all of us are dog lovers, so that was smart. But that also brings out a false analogy, because she says that 53 million people die each day and without a citation, and 2.7 million dogs are euthanized each year. And she compares the two with, if 2.7 million dogs can be euthanized each year, why can't some of those 53 million people be killed through physician-assisted suicide? And to me, that just doesn't really make sense. And she also, or I didn't really believe that the 53 million people die each day, was very accurate. So I fact-checked it, and according to wholesomewords.org, in 2016, they made an estimation that 155,500 people would die each day. So those numbers are vastly different. So in conclusion, I believe Mulan could have had more definitive secondary claims, and her major claim could have been reworded a bit differently to have a greater effect. Thank you.
All right, Robert, your general approach ends up being a little bit more of a critique than a refutation. You're suggesting, here's how she could have made her argument better, here's why it wasn't particularly strong, and sometimes you're actually coming right out and agreeing with her position on a couple of things, which doesn't sound like we have a clash over what is true in this situation. It's just a question of over how true it is, and I think that that's problematic because that's not really your responsibility. You do label the proposition and you mention what some of the supporting claims are going to be, but your responses to them, like I said, seem to be like, well, this argument is a little bit weak. Listing all the symptoms and describing what they are, all right, that's her point to show that there is a problem with people having a terminal illness. Your argument seems to simply be that, well, yeah, that's true. People have these terminal illnesses and people shouldn't suffer, but that's a policy claim. Well, it's only a policy claim if she says that we should be killing them or should be allowing them to kill themselves. What she's saying is that allowing them to kill themselves or allowing them to be killed under physician-assisted situations would alleviate those symptoms. I think there are probably other arguments to be made here. For example, is there any other way to alleviate these symptoms, especially the ones that are cognitive that are related to the disease? Now, the argument that she's kind of got built in here is that some of this is due to the medications that people are taking. And you started to suggest on the second point that there's this other medication that people can take. You mentioned it by name. It's in the article. And then I have no idea why you mentioned it, because it wasn't clear to me. Does it have fewer symptoms? Does it clear up the symptoms? Why does it kill you faster? I don't know why it's in your argument here. I don't know what you're using it to prove. It's a response, but it doesn't have any context or meaning. So I'm not sure how it helps you whatsoever. If it eliminates, like I said, those side effects or something else. So that was a big problem also on that point. I think the problem is I think you're accepting the premise that death is the only way to get rid of these things, and you're just arguing that, well, did she do a good enough job to show that, and you've got a mild criticism of the quality of your argument, instead of suggesting that there are alternative ways of addressing this, that there might be value in overcoming some of these symptoms or problems. Inevitably, if they are terminally ill, they are going to die. That is true. The only question is, do they suffer? And there's a ton of research out there that says suffering's not required because we've got all kinds of fancy pain medications and that sort of thing. And I think that maybe you kind of missed the opportunity to go at it in that direction. I appreciated the effort to clarify how many people are dying annually or daily, that sort of thing. I think that that's a worthwhile goal. I don't think it gets you that much, because if our number is wrong, so what does that mean? We're back to the same situation. So it's not 53 million people a year. I'd have to multiply 155,000 times 365 in my head to do that. Does anybody know that? 155,000 times 365? Where are all our engineering majors? They're supposed to be able to do that instantly in their head. I don't know if it comes close to 53 million. It's certainly a chunk, but what difference does it make if it's 12 million or 53 million? The argument is that it's being used to make a comparison to the dogs, and I think there's an argument to be suggested that we treat humans differently than dogs in lots of ways, and this is not really a comparable example. All right. Sometimes you have to make the decision on a dog because you can't afford to treat the dog. Generally, we don't make that decision on humans if we can avoid it, and we have insurance for our humans. They've got all kinds of coverage that's available to them. There are lots of treatments for them, and dogs, of course, can't communicate what their symptoms are very effectively, whereas humans can. Humans can specify, that hurts, that stopped hurting, this works, that doesn't work, I'm tired, I'm not tired, I want to eat this, I don't want to eat that. There are big differences here, and I think the suggestion that we treat humans like dogs is a little bit problematic based on the analogy, not based on the number of people or dogs that are going on there. All right, thank you.